Welcome back to the community, everybody, and thank you all for being part of it. Please don't forget to subscribe, click the notification bell so every time I upload, you're notified immediately, and please hit the like button and share. That's all you have to do. It's all free to do. Okay, today we are doing one more step on fire prevention, something that I wasn't aware of, and we'll go over it in a second. This isn't going to be a long, drawn-out video, but I'll show you what to do that I wasn't even aware of. I did fire prevention recently, as you see here, and I missed one thing, but not technically. I didn't know about it. So let's go over it right now. So I got an alert from one of our club members, Darren Waugh, and he had said, hey, you might want to take a look at the latest issue of VW Trends magazine. There's a tip in there on fire prevention. Now, I had knew that I just did a video on that with many different ways to prevent it. But when I went ahead and I looked and seen Dan, VW Trends, the spring edition of VW Trends magazine, I love this magazine. Make sure you order it. The link's in the description for ordering the magazine. There was one that I didn't know about, and it was brought to the attention of VW dealerships back in the day anytime a car was in for service to check this. And I'm going to show you how to take care of it right now, like they described in here for like $5. Let's get on it. Now, we do know that air-cooled VWs are kind of notorious in their own way for catching fire, sadly, but it can be prevented by routine maintenance. Carry a fire extinguisher with you, though. And they even have the fire extinguisher systems, suppression systems that you can put inside the engine compartment. Now, this is the Blaze Cut fire suppression system, and no, I'm not trying to sell anything, but I'm showing you what it looks like. And some people complain they're a little expensive. They are about $250, but to tell you the truth, you can't put a price on it. I'm not saying that you want a fire just so you can put it out, because a lot of damage can get done extremely fast, especially to the paint, electrical. I could go on and on about that, honestly. Now, I'm going to bring you up close here in a second, because Type 1 and Type 2 both have a fuel line coming from the tank and around the fan shroud. And right behind the fan shroud is the breastplate, and that's where the action happens. And this is what the dealers were notified of back in the day. VW, Volkswagen, issued a service bulletin stating to the dealerships anytime a Type 1 or Type 2 was in for service, axle boots, valve adjustment, or anything where the car was raised in the air, to check this grommet for being dried up, fallen out, and replace it for free. Maybe sometimes they didn't tell people, they just did it. But I'm going to show you an alternative that I read in the magazine where you won't have to mess with the grommet ever again. And I don't think anybody knew what was going on. So it was something that VW never told anybody, I guess. But the dealerships and the technicians knew, and they would try to make it right. But if you didn't take your car in for service and you kind of messed around about it, it could become an issue. Let's do it. I just wanted to at least explain everything. So we're at the front of the motor, and some of you may call it the rear of the motor because the flywheel's there. However, this is your breastplate that goes all the way across the back, and I'm going to bring you up close. You don't have to take the engine out of the car to fix this issue. It'll be a little tight, a little bit cramped, but at the same time, you can do it. Now, I'm going to bring you up close here so you can see what was going on. Okay, so you have your carburetor that would sit right here, and your fuel pump is right there. Mine is blocked off because I'm going to run an electric pump. Now, what you have is a fuel line that runs to the fuel pump, curves around the doghouse, and goes through the breastplate. Now, I'm going to remove this in a second so it's easier for filming purposes. But there's a rubber grommet that sits in here, and when they disintegrate and dry out, instead of you putting another rubber grommet in, I'm going to show you something you can put in permanently for like $3, and you'll never have to mess with it again. This line, from vibration and shaking around, when the grommet's gone, it ends up pretty much rubbing a hole in the metal line. And people weren't aware of this. Volkswagen was. Well, then you have gas dripping down a number 3 exhaust pipe right here. And then poof, and there it's gone. My breastplate is not screwed down because I'm not finished with the engine. So I'm going to remove this real quick so that I get to put my new seals on before anybody says I'm missing them. I'm waiting on them to get here. So let me pop this apart. We're going to take it over to the bench and we're going to permanently fix this. And you won't have to mess around with the grommet anymore. Remember, you can do this in the car. It just might not be very much fun, but you can do it. Let's go over to the bench. Now, if you see these here, the rubber grommets, because I am going to put one on the one side for the wiring to come through. These came from Harbor Freight. Now, this is what VW and many car manufacturers use, was a rubber grommet, okay? So I'm going to show you one in here. This is actually wiring that comes through right above the transaxle. So I'm going to pop this in there. There we go. And when it dry rotted, of course, this would dry up and fall out. Now, obviously, for the wiring, there will be sheathing. I don't know what to call it around the wiring to protect that. But that is what came from the factory. So we're going to make it right. What do I have here? I have a lamp repair kit. I spent $3.50, I believe, at Lowe's. And I'm going to bring you up so you don't have to look at my face. Now, let's pop this open. And like I said, you can get them at Lowe's or Home Depot, whatever. I just found it at Lowe's over by their ceiling fans. And we're going to have to make up some washers. And then we're going to send a fuel line through there. Now, one thing I like to do, and if you notice this open already, it's because I already did it. This is very important. Let me get some washers and I'll show you what to do so the fuel line don't get affected in here either. Now, the fuel line is going to end up going through here. So what you want to do, and you don't have to, it seemed pretty smooth to me, but you can take a rat tail file, I don't have one in my hand, and go like this. Let me get closer. Go like that with a rat tail file because you want to polish the end of this inside. So when the fuel line's going through there, it's not getting buggered up, if you know what I mean, like anywhere in that direction. So you're going to want to go ahead and just file the edges on the inside without buggering these threads up if need be. Let's do our quick, cheap fix. So you're going to need to add a nut and a washer. Now you want a washer. It didn't come with them, but I always have a bunch. Okay. Take your washer, slide it on, put it through there. You're not going to have a rubber grommet. If you do have one, you can use it at your discretion. We are going to go ahead and put our washer on and our nut. Try to get it even through there the best you can. Okay, these happen to be 14mm nuts. Wrong way. Okay, make sure you snug it pretty good. You do not want it moving around on you. Now, if you look on each side, that's what it should look like. I don't have it perfectly even, as you can see, but that's not a huge deal. Now, I'm just going to set this on here in a makeshift way. Let me just put one screw holding that down because I'm going to mimic something. There's paint in the threads still. I didn't clean them up. So we're going to pretend. Let's play pretend. Now, as you can see, this is all very loosely fit. I don't have everything on here. However, here is the fuel line going through the lamp fitting. Now, like I said, take a rat tail file and file down the lip on the inside of this fitting. This one was actually pretty smooth, so it didn't need it, but I did it anyhow, almost like a polishing effect with the file, and cleaned it up with steel wool. But if this starts going and vibrating around, there's nothing to cut into it, because without this sleeve on there or a rubber grommet, you have a sharp metal edge. So when that happens, of course, it's going to cut the line, drip, And Volkswagen never mentioned it to anybody except the dealerships. Maybe the technicians kept it a secret, I don't know. However, this solves the problem of a rubber grommet. Nonetheless, this metal sleeve is just a lifesaver, okay? Nothing is perfect, I get it. But the rubber grommet, I wouldn't want to have to check it and change it all the time. Always check on your fuel lines, though, for the quality of stuff we have today and the ethanol, and I won't get into a big thing about that. However, your fuel lines should be changed periodically. But this will stop the fire from happening in this area. So I hope that's helpful, and I'm going to go over a couple of things. I know. Now, of course, you should always be checking on your fuel lines. And by the way, when you're using any type of fuel line, I've seen guys say, well, it's a very tight fit with the fuel hose, and they don't use fuel clamps at their fuel pump. Please use clamps. Don't do that. From what I understand is when they're an extremely tight fit, like the 5mm braided or 5.5mm, you're supposed to almost replace them when you're removing the fuel line. You slice, pull them off, and replace. But always use a clamp, please. I've seen so many people that come here with their cars, and I look and there's no clamps on the lines. Don't do that, okay? Don't be that guy. The ethanol is no good for our hoses. Sometimes a lot of folks like to purchase fuel injection line. It's ethanol safe, so to speak. I believe there's more ethanol in the fuel than they're letting on now, but let's not go down that rabbit hole. Anyhow, thank you for being here. I hope this is helpful to some folks, and thank you, Dan at VW Trends Magazine, the owner. That's who did an interview with us. And I so appreciated that. I really, really did. And I just love the magazine. I think it's awesome. I'm glad it's back in gear again because I was reading that as a kid when I had my little dream book with J.C. Whitney and the rest of them back in 1980, trying to figure out my Beetle. Thank you all for being here, folks. I'm just going to try to get in there and do a Sunday night live chat. I'll post if I'm going to do it in a community tab here or on the Facebook group. Everybody, have a very, very nice day.